Locho sampo pagyo trashi pa tuche tempe trile yarngoda pelge drolor zambe ze parach palde lame shabla solvande Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timonisha Sanekar Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timonisha Sanekar Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumatimo Nisha Sanekar Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumatimo Nisha Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumatimo Nisha Sanekar Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Pakyukye Kodandaki Lo Pakyukye Sundandaki Pakyukye Tudandaki Teyerme Chikto Chingilo Ma Kyuke Kudam Dagilo Ma Kyuke Sundan Dagina Ma Kyuke Tudam Dagi Teyerme Chikto Chingilo Om Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Swaha Om Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Swaha Om Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Swaha Sangye Chodan Tsoge Chonam Lai Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsu Chi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchira Sangye Drupara Sho Sangye Chodan Tsoge Chonam Lai Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsu Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchira Sangye Drupara Sho Sangye Chodan Tsoge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsu Chi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchira Sangye Drupara Sho
In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. With the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Good evening. Today I wanted to pick up the subject of last week, what we were talking about last week, because there was something that I had in mind, but then the introduction became longer than the subject itself. So today I'll try to avoid an introduction that that would, who knows where we would get lost, which isn't bad, but I want to go in one direction. There are two fundamental ways to act in our life, generally speaking. One is by reaction, or rather, there are situations in our life, things that happen, of all kinds, and we react to that situation, and then given our reaction, the other acts or reacts, and based on this we go forward. So the studies that our studies, our work, our family situation, many aspects of our life are taken a little bit like as we go, ahead, let's say we live the day, living for the day. It's about reacting to what happens, and in some cases it's fine, but in others less so. The other way is where we don't react to situations, but we act with awareness, with mindless. I mean, there's mindfulness. There's a strong difference between acting and reacting. When we act, we see what's in front of us. We think about what we want. And then we connect the action of that present moment with the direction the consequences that action will bring us. So, I'll give you just a very simple example. It's hot. I'm in front of an ice cream shop. I love ice cream. It's not very good for me. So the reaction would be, I'm going to buy 3 kilos of ice cream. I mean, that would be the reaction. I followed my desire. I followed desire that comes up in that present moment. In that moment, it's hot. Then there's an object of desire. On the other side, I take refuge in the ice cream. I mean, it's something very immediate. A desire arises and I follow that desire. It's something else would be, I'm in that same situation, but I ask myself, well, what is it that I want? Is this good for me or is this bad for me? In my personal case, if it's very, very hot and I take a little bit of ice cream, it's not bad. O almeno I'm not able to perceive immediate consequences. So, a little bit of ice cream if it's very hot. And so I'm taking advantage these days. But I can't go beyond a certain amount, because even if that reaction would be to follow this desire, to desire to eat an enormous quantity of ice cream, but I know that's not good for me. So I act with awareness, with mindfulness, and I stop myself. Is it spontaneous? No. So if I were to simply follow what my attraction of the moment is, what I want to do at that in that moment, I wouldn't stop with the with that first ice cream. I'd keep going. I I like ice cream even in the winter. But I can't absolutely have. I'm careful about that. But this is just a very simple example. But very often when we're in front of a situation, regardless of what it is, the reaction the reaction of someone in front of us or someone else's words, normally we have a reaction that is either of attraction or of aversion. I mean, these are the two main types of reactions that we have. But in front of this attraction aversion, if we were to let ourselves be taken by this attraction or aversion, then we end up reacting because it's not because what you know because if I'm following this attraction or aversion, it's not always the best choice for me. But if I ask myself, what do I want? Do I want to cultivate a relationship with you that's based on not based on conflict, or do I want a relationship based on trust and harmony? The people that I have to deal with, I want to have a relationship based on harmony. If there's someone if I see that there's no possibility to have a harmonious relationship, I go towards, a neutral relationship, and then maybe in the future, something a harmonious relationship can come out. It happened to me also in the past. Where you know there was someone who had a there was someone I saw that it wasn't easy. So I said, let's just go for the neutral relationship. And there's something about myself. This is just a parenthesis, that I can create. I don't go towards conflict. I just cut the cord. And I just become very, very neutral. And it's almost worse for the other person, because if there's conflict, if I fight with you, if that person is looking for attention, it's worse, this attitude of seeming indifference from me. So, but I don't have it. So in a difficult situation, I don't have aversion, but there's a kind of indifferent neutrality, which can seem worse. And I know myself, and I've made things a little bit better. But independently of this, when we're in a situation, in any situation, we ask ourselves, if I want a harmonious relationship, or one based on conflict, So the moment I say that I want to have a harmonious relationship, but I see that I am faced with a situation where you are physically or verbally saying, doing something that I don't like, if I react, that's going to create conflict, because if I have that aversion, it doesn't bring harmony. So what happens if I react, then I'm constructing more conflict. But what I want actually is to have a harmonious relationship. So I stop and I ask myself, but where is it that I want to go? Where do I want to take this relationship? No, I want to have a harmonious relationship. So given the situation I find myself in, to build a harmonious relationship, what should I do? Oh, okay. So better to be quiet here. Okay, here instead, it's better to see the needs of the other that's hard for me to see. Or here, I should maybe wait to talk about what I want to talk about, and I listen to the other. We give space, and we don't react immediately. Is this clear? So when we're faced with any situation, we can react, and normally reactions come from attraction or aversion, or we can act with awareness And there we're going to choose to follow, choose with aversion or attraction, but towards where is it we want to go? Like Shantideva and the Bodhisattva Charvatara, this beautiful text called The Lifestyle of a Bodhisattva, the way of the Bodhisattva. At a certain point, he asks, what's more important for you, your inner peace or what others think of you? And our rhetorical answer would be, oh, inner peace. And then Shantideva asks, well, then how is it that you lose it when someone speaks ill of you? If really your inner peace is more important than what other people think of you, how come you lose it when someone says something about you? Because in reality, I give more importance to what other people think. So in different situations, I found myself talking to people, and and I say, okay, there's this situation, and people would say, oh, but did you see what happened, this and that? But I say, but if you lose your balance in the situation, you're giving power to those people. You're giving power to that negative situation. We're the one who give power to the situation, that we don't think are good. So, because if someone acts in a certain way, and I don't agree with that, but when faced with that, if it makes me nervous and I'm upset, then I'm giving an enormous amount of power to that situation. Instead, if I'm stubborn, and I say, what, my inner balance, I'm just not going to lose it. I'm not going to lose my inner peace. If it's your business, to think differently. But if I were to lose my inner calm because one person said this, another one did that, then just open your eyes and look around in the world. I mean, the people in the world who act, with arrogance and violence. Is it something rare, or is it everywhere? I mean, it's everywhere. You don't have to go very far either. And so, if I were to be upset every time someone acted in a way that I didn't agree with, at that point, I should be upset all the time. So it's not a healthy choice, and it's not even a healthy justification. Say, oh well, he did this and this happened, etc. Because my peace depends on me. It's clear. Clearly, it's not that easy. But somehow it is. We need to direct it a little bit. So the question that I ask here is, what do I want? Where is it that I want to go? How do I want to relate to others? With what inner state of being do I want to cultivate? What kind of society do I want to live in and cultivate? I don't know if it's ever happened. I don't know if it's ever happened to you that you've lost your inner balance for what a politician has done. And I'm just asking, yes or no? Here's a question. So that politician, that those times that you've lost your balance, is it something that touched your life directly, or was it something that indirect touched your life directly or indirectly? Oh, you see, if you look at the interdependence of the social system, it touches, so anything I do is going to touch everybody's lives. So, but one is upset because there's an idealized image of what we think they should do and they don't do. Also because most of us, sincerely speaking, I'm talking for myself. I'm not going to talk about most of us, just for myself. I don't have the clarity of what happens really in a government. You know, for me, it's just like watching a theater, a show. There's only one thing I know, that even directing a Dharma center is complicated enough. You just imagine what it's like to run a country where every situation, in every situation, there are different desires, different needs, different energies that push this way and that way, and most of that based, a lot of that based on an image, you know, because here, but we're not here to talk about all of this. What I want to say is that at the end of the day, very often we lose our balance for things that, in one way or the other, that they don't depend on us and don't really change our lives so much either. So my point here is, what do I want? I want to keep my inner peace, so I need to cultivate it. At a certain point, it's excuse the expression, but I need to care. I need to not care so much about it, in the sense that where I see that there's something that is not going well according to my way of seeing things, where I can make a difference, I do that. When I look at the situations in the world, I ask myself, what can I do? And where I can do, I do. But I'm not going to let these situations take away my inner peace or change my way of being. Is that clear? Is this easy? No. If it were easy, we'd already be Buddhas. It's not easy, because in just a few words, we work like this. I said that I wasn't going to make an introduction, but anyway, we work like this, in this following way. There's a part of us where we have feelings, we have inner sensations, and every time we have a sensation, we try to understand what we're feeling by observing the context around us, and we look for the reason, the cause of these feelings, these sensations. An example that I lived just a short time ago, I think I talked about it even last week, I don't remember. When I had COVID, for example, towards the end, there were a few days where I was extremely sad, which is very strange for me. I was really sad. I didn't want anything. I was and when I'm not well, I just stay by myself. But that day, it happened to be the recurrence of the death of Lama Gangchen. Physically I was fine. COVID for me was just a cold. I was fine, but days later, talking to a friend who's a doctor, Minu, who also, she had COVID and followed many, many patients who had COVID, she said to me, that in the 10th day, towards the 10th day, I had 3 days of strong, strong sadness. And talking to many patients, it happened to many. Towards that 10th day, there were 1 to 3 days of strong sadness. And I was talking even to the electrician who does work for us at the center, and I called him. He had COVID. I said, "How are you?" And I said, "How are you?" And he said, "Well, it was just strange, because normally he's always happy." And he said he had COVID. And then I explained to him what happened to me, and he said it's exactly what happened to me. I thought it was because of my nephew, like this and that. But when someone isn't well, it's not that we know, it's the cause of the sickness or the hormones here happen there. I mean, we really don't know what happens inside our body, but our mind and our body are directly connected. So I don't have a lot of energy, I feel sad, and so I project that onto something. For me, it was, it was it was the day, the recurrence of the death of Lama Gangchen. For others, it was for another reason. Why we were sad that day and not 3 days before. I mean, 'cause there are other causes. So, just to say, this is one example, but normally we perceive the world around us, and we're looking for to be to match the world outside to match our feelings inside, and we see what we're able to see, what we're ready to see. It's another point. There's so many examples of this. For you know, for a long time, I gave you the example of these transformation cabins, electrical transformation cabins. But let's use another example today. A friend told me that he was in Amazonia, and there was a group of researchers who went to see a tribe in the Amazon. And they were there with these people who had never had contact with people from the outside the tribe. After I don't know how many days they were there, these American researchers showed them on a screen. They showed them on a screen where they came from. I said, "We've come to see you, but here is where we came from." And they showed them a film of New York, and the they filmed the indigenous people watching, and for most of them, they were just like this, nothing special. And there were a few moments where they all went together, like there was actual reaction, like look. And then they went to see, they went to look at that film, and they went to see in that film at that time there was a chicken. And their conclusion was, that the skyscrapers, for those who've never seen a skyscraper, it's just form and colors. It's nothing. Instead, when they saw something that was common to them, they said, "Oh, there's something. Well, they have chickens too, or hens. They have hens too." It's like me when I walk into the forest, everything's just green. Once I went to the forest, into the woods with someone who really understands well. After 5 minutes of explanations, it's a whole different universe. This plant is like this because there's lots of water, or here, this plant is like this because there's lightning. You start to seeing differently, but often we're not able to see what we're not ready to see. If we don't have those concepts, etc. So what happens is that we have this perception of reality around us that reflects our inner state of being, and not the contrary. So the point that I want to get to is, I can react in front of everything that happens, or I can act with awareness and mindfulness, constructing towards that person that I want to be. Because if I want to be a calm person, balanced, satisfied, peaceful, joyous, healthy, physically, mentally, in harmony with myself, with myself and with others, the first question is that what I want or not? Do I want it or not? I mean, this is a fundamental step. And unfortunately, in these last decades, we've stopped dreaming as if we didn't have dreams anymore. We don't believe in the possibility of an utopia. You know, you know, almost as if, if something is not possible in this moment, then it's impossible. It, as if everything that was able to be to come true has already come about. Like, sometimes I hear people say, how is this possible in 2000 in your 2022? But I don't know how much better we are than compared to centuries past, but this is not my point. But my point here is we need to believe in dreams. It's fundamental. We need to um, we need to be able to ask ourselves, who do I want to be? Who do I want to be? What do I want in my life? And, being able to have an idea of who we want to be is fundamental, even more if we want to follow a spiritual path, what Buddha transmitted. Because this is the first step to say, I want to be a Buddha. I want to be a Bodhisattva. These are names. But just in a few words, it means I want to develop my inner qualities like love and wisdom to their maximum potential. And as a consequence, I want to eliminate completely my conflicts and my mental defilements, everything that generates suffering and conflict. This is what I want. And I believe that I can do it. I believe it's possible. How? I don't know, but I believe it. This is an objective that I have. And if we talk in other terms, the question that I ask is, do I want to be in harmony, in peace, with joy, with love, or not? We can go on and on with other characteristics. I mean, do we want this or not? If the answer is yes, at this point, like my father sometimes would say, if you want to realize something, there's 1% of inspiration and 99% of sweat, of transpiration. That 1% or that 1% of inspiration gives the direction to everything else. But often, we're there sweating without any kind of goal, like those people at the gyms, running on a treadmill. We live in a state where, there's this habit of doing just to do, of producing, where you're going. Sometimes I see people at the end of the day, oh, today I didn't do anything. I didn't get anything done, as if the day it wasn't worth anything. But and other times, maybe another day you were incredibly productive, but you were also angry and stressed, and there you produced a lot of negativity. But what is it that I want? What do I want? And excuse me if I just keep getting back to this point. But once I say I want to be in peace with myself, and then we need to construct it. It needs time. But at that point, I need to act. I need to act with awareness. I need to become what I want to become. It can be a relationship with somebody else, with a husband, a wife, children, a colleague. And I ask myself, what kind of relationship do I want to have with you, independently of independently of how you relate to me? How do I want to relate with you? If I want to have a relationship based on love and respect and trust and harmony, then it's up to me to act in that direction. Not as a response to how you act towards me, because I don't have superpowers to change you. I have a marvelous power to be able to direct my own actions. So what kind of relationship do I want to have with you? It's my choice. I need to act in that direction, even if it's not spontaneous. But okay, maybe I want to act differently, but I know that wouldn't be that wouldn't be good. So I I give a little bit of space. I try to breathe. I try to go beyond myself to see you, to see your needs. And I ask myself for it to become harmonious. Um, what would be the best way to act, And then it's a trial and error, but we always work in that direction. Once we have a direction, and now I'm getting to what I wanted to talk about. It's, you know, it's useless to say certain things if there's no basis. The basis here is to really desire, have this passion, desire having a better version of oneself, a state of health, physical, emotional, sentimental, desire, you know, desiring Buddhahood, desiring to become a bodhisattva. I mean, having this strong desire to be a better version of ourselves. And once we desire this, there are two main ways, two main paths called in Tibetan Buddhism, Gui Tekpa et Jaggi Tekpa, the vehicle of the cause and of the result. And so the vehicle of the cause is called the sutra. It's where I put my energy towards the causes, planting the seeds and watering the sprouts so that they little by little become great trees that will give fruit. So I put energy into the cause to go towards the result. So I see the result. I have clarity of where I want to go, but I put my energy is focused on these small steps of what I need to do now. And it's something very, very important. And this is one way. Another way, harder in some ways, much harder, but very Drebu Lamkir is in Tibetan, which means bringing the result into the path. And in this way, I act in a way that I am not yet. I'm not a Buddha yet, but I'm going to try to act as if I were. I try to see myself as if I already were. So I act and I live and I interact as if I had already reached that level. So I'm bringing the result into the path. By doing that little by little, I get there. And this has a very special power, this system. Normally, this bringing the result into the path goes together also with the causes that take to the result. But connecting to the result is very important. But the danger is that sometimes we set a goal, but then we forget, because we forget about our ability to reach that goal, and we get lost in the small daily things. And then at a certain point, it's not important to be a Buddha anymore, but just to be a good Buddhist. But who cares about being a good Buddhist? It's not that when you die that there's a fast track for the Buddhists and the atheists over there, and or who knows, maybe the preferential treatment or lane. But when we die, what determines, the next is our inner states of being, the actions that we've done, and not with, if you're a part of one group or another. But sometimes there's this moment where one gets lost along the path and forgets to see the objective and stays trapped in the form, in the means. Every once in a while, along the spiritual path inside of a religion, one can lose the spiritual objective and stay trapped in these aspects that are these religious aspects, formal. You can't do this, you need to do that, you need to act like this, you can't do that. And maybe one follows, everything very well, what one should do, what one shouldn't do. But then that can become an objective in and of itself when instead it's just a means. So it's very important for us to always remember what we want, where are we going, where do we want to go, and when we bring the result into the path, even if this danger is always there, it's easier to connect with our objective. And there's another very important aspect here. We will never put energy into a direction if we don't really believe that we can reach it. Well, we wouldn't put energy there. As asked you before, do you want to reach a state of satisfaction, love, and joy, and peace? I mean, the rhetorical answer is yes, but deeply, sincerely, do you really believe that this is possible? Some who think yes, some no, some maybe, some say yes, but is it a seed that comes from the head or from the heart? It's not that obvious. I've asked myself, when I was about 18 years old, I was in India and I was studying Buddhist philosophy. I loved the life I was leading and my studies. At a certain point, I'm I found myself in front of a phrase by Lama Michel Rinpoche in the three principal aspects of the path, and he says, which in the translation would be something like, having meditated in that way, after having familiarized oneself with the preciousness of life and the certainty of death, the uncertainty of the time of death, karma, and how the negativities of samsara, etc. When Korwe Punsekla, when the attraction doesn't arise, attraction for the excellencies of samsara, not even for an instant, and then day and night. And night and day, one is in that state where one desires this freedom from samsara. At this moment, that certainty to emerge has arisen, and that is this. It's often translated as renunciation, and I think it's a little strange, Instead, it's literally definite emergence, and that would be the actual first path, the first path to actually following the spiritual path. So it's when I have this certainty that I can emerge from this state of suffering. But at this point, I'm not projecting my happiness on anything that cannot sustain that happiness, and I desire to reach this state of peace, and just night and day. When I read this for the first time, I thought, oh, just leave it be. This is too difficult. I thought, well, maybe in the past, maybe great masters were able to do it. But when I look at myself and I look at those around me, day and night, but when we think, if we think about getting out of samsara once a week, that's already a lot. When we're able to recognize all permeating suffering as suffering, and recognizing the inner cycle of the inner cycle of suffering, and I don't project that onto to others and to else. I mean, that's already, you know, that's happens once in a while. It's already a lot. So when I read that, I thought, forget it, because if this is the entryway to the path, then and this, imagine what comes after. And it's said that if one doesn't have this state of being, then one hasn't begun the spiritual path. One stays outside the doorway. And I had a little bit of a crisis, because I said to myself, okay, I'm dedicating my life to something here, and I'm not sure that I'm able to make that first make that first step, you know, and you know and looking around me, it was hard to find those qualities too. Luckily, I was able. I did meet people with these great qualities. Of course, Lama Gangchen was one of them, but it was difficult. So I started looking for the answer here, because what sense does it make to put so much energy into something that you don't believe in, that you don't believe you're able to, to manage? And I had I had a few encounters that pacified my heart. And the essence is that even the inner state, this so-called renunciation, or it's also translated as love towards oneself, this desire of peace, this desire of getting out of samsara, it's not something that comes immediately. It's a gradual process, a little bit at a time. And then more and more, we're able to recognize the recognize our inner state of being, and it's a gradual process, and it's a process where I desire something positive. It's not about negating something negative. No, I'm desiring something positive. I want to be at peace with myself, but I need to believe that it's possible. And so Geshe Thupten Rinpoche, one of my philosophy masters, he gave me a very simple reasoning, but it touched me deeply. He asked me, "Is it possible to diminish anger?" And I said, "Yes." With it's not obvious, it's not easy, but if you change certain behaviors, and then you can have less anger. I've seen this in many people. Is it possible to be less dissatisfied? Is it possible to love more, to love in a healthier way? Is it possible to be more generous, or develop more concentration? It is possible, isn't it? So what's the limit of all that? What's the limit of diminishing anger? I mean, how much can we diminish the anger? Can we just get to one point? We say we can't get, and you can't have any less. I mean, you diminish it until there isn't any more. What's the limit of developing love, reaching unconditional love? And it's like this for every aspect. But it's something, I mean, I can love one person more. I can open up my heart and try to see someone better. I mean, it's possible to make micro steps. And if this micro step is possible, then it means that the next one's possible, the one after that is next. And as Buddha Shakyamuni explained himself, I mean, the path that he did to, from the beginning of his path from renunciation, when he wanted to be free from his suffering, so-called samsara, to become enlightened, it's said that 3 eons went by. I mean, an eon, I wouldn't be able to tell you how many years that is. Time is also relative. But Buddha himself said, and there's some sutras where he talks about 500 previous lives as as human beings and 500 lives as animals. So it's not just about one lifetime. I mean, we're living in times where we want everything yesterday. You know, I've 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 so I've been following Buddhism for 2 years and I'm not a Buddha yet. Well, it was great that you're so hopeful, but it's not really like this. Because why? Because we're made of habits and we need time to reach something. But my question is not if you can change everything from one day to the next. No, my question is it possible to make micro steps forward? If that's possible, then it's possible to make another one and then another one and another one, and then it's possible then to get to where we want to get, the state of Buddhahood, of freedom from samsara. There's no hurry. The hurry that we have is starting to walk in the right direction. But let's remember that time is relative. What can seem like a long time, or a brief for someone else. I mean, it's very relative. What's important is to walk in the right direction. And one fundamental aspect is to connect ourselves often with who we want to become. In a kind of layman's way, we can say connect with a better version of yourself. Connect yourself with the Buddha that one day you will become. And know how to recognize yourself in that state. And the more I do it, the more gradually I'm going to identify myself in that state. And this changes so much because one way that we relate with the world around us is through our identity. as long as I recognize myself as being nervous and envious and aggressive and sad and slow, abandoned, etc. Each one adds his own. As long as I see myself like that, I will live my world through that. Once I'm able to identify myself differently and recognize myself as a person full of love and gratitude, respect and balance and generosity, awareness, then I begin to relate through that, and it changes everything. But to be able to do that, unfortunately, it's not a conceptual process. It's not when we think in one direction, okay, I've understood and it's enough. It's a process where we need to familiarize ourselves, and we familiarize via repetition with certain emotions, with certain states of identity, certain inner states, but not on a conceptual level. And this takes time. Here, but what's the main tool that we have? I mean, there are two times where we can do this. And for many of us, unfortunately, is just one. But two main tools. One is called conduct. Chöpa in Tibetan. Conduct is the way we interact with others, when we eat, when we speak, when we work, when we're in daily contact, with others. Everything we do, the way I act reinforces one or more ways of myself. So I'm in a certain situation. If I react with laziness, I'm going to reinforce my laziness. Instead, I say, no, I don't want to be lazy. I'm going to act differently, then I'm weakening my laziness, and I'm increasing my effort. If I'm in a situation where there's somebody in difficulty, and with awareness, I go towards the person, I see the needs of that person, and I help that person perform an act of generosity, and then I'm increasing these qualities of mine of generosity. So in conduct, there's some basic rules, generic rules that say, don't kill, don't steal, don't lie, don't have a wrong, don't have a sexual misconduct, don't don't steal, don't speak with aggression or others related to or speech. But every action that I do, every interaction, I am reinforcing one aspect or another of myself. Every action is every action is reinforcing an aspect of ourselves. So where do I want to go? So it's not so important what I do, but how I do it. I can I can be in a very boring job. Years ago, I thought about this. Um, like I think, for example, those who work on the freeways at the toll booths, and I started thinking, how could I make this job meaningful? All day long, you just spend your day like this, giving ticket, giving money, and someone said, how can you do? I could, one could reinforce constancy. I could try to give love to every person who comes, a positive thought for everyone who comes through. For example, there's something very, very simple. There are many things, that many things really depend on how we do it to change the quality of something. Because when we do something, there's the external aspect of that action, but there's also, what happens inside. Because things don't just happen outside, but there's also inside. We talk about traumas, for example. It's not, it's what happened outside is less important than what happened inside, how the person lived the experience. If someone came to me and said, oh, because this happened, and independently of what I saw or how I lived it, how did you live it? So for every situation, there's a physical aspect, what you did, how you lived it outside, but that inner aspect, and then there's also an inner aspect, like how you lived it, and there you can work, make you can really make great changes there. You can work on so many aspects, inner aspects. A disciple of Atisha asked him, he said, your disciple who came with you from India, he's been here with you for many years. Maybe we should send him to India for a vacation. Remember that in the 11th century, to go from Tibet, where he was visiting, to India, that was a couple of years, a year to go, a year to stay, a year to come back. And Atisha said, who are you talking about? And they were saying, well, maybe a retreat for this person. And Atisha looks at him again and says, and then he looked at him and said, who are you talking about? Are you talking about my master of patience? Because this was the cook of Atisha, who had come from India, and it was said that he had a very, very difficult character, personality, and he would fight with everyone. He had a really, really difficult situation. And he said to them, who are you talking about? My master of patience. Because let's remember that you can't practice patience without an object of anger. Some great practitioners and masters, they would go look for them, on purpose, because when one reaches an inner state of balance and patience, where no situation actually can make one lose that balance or make them nervous. So they would go and look for more extreme situations to see if there wasn't any hidden anger. And this is one of those, like, do not try this at home, because these situations come up. And and if you're in a moment where nothing is making you upset or getting you angry, then just enjoy it, because it'll come. But when I'm faced with a situation, where an object of anger manifests, it's a mirror. It's an enormous opportunity that I have to cultivate my patience. Patience is my ability to not react with aggression when faced with an object of anger, some aversion, something that I don't like, but I stay calm and I don't react with aggressively, physically, verbally, or mentally. I mean, this is practicing patience. So we practice patience when there's an object of anger. When can we practice generosity? When there's someone who needs something, and we have something to share. So if I'm in a situation, if I'm anywhere and someone comes and asks me something, it can be an object of aversion or miserliness or generosity. Oh, how wonderful that I can share with you. It depends on how you feel inside. So the question that I ask myself is, who do I want to be? What are the qualities that I want to cultivate? And I need to familiarize myself with this. This is conduct. It's the way my way of speaking, eating, my way of consuming, because when we go and buy things, for example, we're making choices that are going to interact with many other things. So even here, it would be important for all of us to be consumers, to buy with awareness, because one it's not that we buy something and we are not part of the story. So it's almost like voting. Every time when I buy something, I'm basically voting for one system or another. So maybe a product is more convenient economically, but it actually is actually much more harmful for so many other aspects. So what I mean to say is, in conduct, there are all of our kinds of behaviors and our relationships. So we don't fall in the trap of thinking that the spiritual path is in the temple and in the prayer, the mantra, and meditation, and reading sacred texts. These are very important and worthy things. But the spiritual path can be found is also in our conduct, is in how we behave with our family, how we behave at work, how we behave as consumers. Having a mindful conduct is essential. So we ask ourselves, what are aspects of my conduct that I need to avoid better, and which ones do I need to avoid and to increase? And this is called morality. Being aware of what is positive, and being aware what is beneficial and what is harmful, which is morality, which is also called protection of one's mind. It's a very important aspect, and it's what we all need to do in our daily lives, because we're all interacting. On the other side, the other part is called meditation. when we read different texts and teachings, these teachings were given in context with the people who would spend most of their life meditating. So, and it was here it was divided into two times: what you do during meditation and what you do in between sessions, you know. So it would be maximum 6 hours between meditation sessions. Instead for us, I mean, how much time can go by between a session or another? Maybe 3 weeks, or 3 months, a week, you know, a day. Depends on each person. But there's a fundamental point here. Meditation is important. Something very personal. And no one can do it for us, but meditation is fundamental. Every once in a while we have this idea, maybe I'm wrong, but it seems to me as if it's widespread that, oh, if I understand and I act in a certain way, then I'm following the path, and I don't need to sit and meditate. But meditation is also important. If you don't feel ready, or if you don't feel comfortable, it's fine to direct direct your contact, have more awareness during the day. But meditation is extremely important. Why? Because our way of acting, our way of interacting with the world depends on our inner state of being. It's a reflection of our mind. So up to here, we're all there. To be able to act with awareness, mindfulness, we need a great amount of self-awareness and ability to direct our own thoughts. And something that we're just not all very used to. So it's extremely important to train ourselves. Everything. I think we're made like this, based on familiarization. The more you do something, the easier it becomes, like muscles. So we need to familiarize ourselves with concentration, with being present. How can I act with awareness if I'm not even able to realize what's happening? And once I realize it had already happened. And you can't always just say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I should have done this. It's true that I acted with awareness, but if I had realized, I would have done differently," which is wonderful. But better to realize before, isn't it? And to be able to block it before, you need to change. Either you just change completely, or you become aware, and then you give yourself the opportunity to choose and do differently. So to have this awareness, one fundamental tool is our ability to direct our mind, and this you obtain through meditation. This is one of the important aspects. Another fundamental aspect that is present, that comes with meditation. I mean, the concept of meditation, it's not about just sitting down and emptying the mind of conceptual thoughts. Is one part, which is very positive. But one of the best definitions of meditations is inducing oneself into certain inner states of beings to create familiarity with those states of beings. You can meditate on love, you can meditate on satisfaction, you can meditate on joy. One induces certain states of positive states of being, and creates familiarity with that feeling. So meditating on love is not about reflecting on the meaning of love. It's about generating the feeling of love and generating that state of mind of love. And there are visualizations, there are ways that to reach that. So in meditation, we have as a main objective is to familiarize our mind with something positive. There's many, many levels. But to do this, one, to learn how to meditate, you need to meditate. It's useless to say, oh, I want to learn to meditate. How can I do? How do you learn to play a violin? You find someone who can teach you. You take a violin in your hands and you practice, hopefully in the right way. Because I mean, can you learn how to play a violin without picking up a violin? I mean, with all the theory in the world, but I don't think it's possible. So also to meditate, one follows the indications, the instructions, etc. But then one needs to sit down and meditate. There are many, many different techniques, valid techniques, but one needs to do it. One of the important aspects of meditation, even more so today than in the past, is that meditation helps us generate inner space. What does that mean? What is space? The definition of space, it can seem a bit technical, but it'll help us get to where I want to go. The definition of space is, in Tibetan, is it's the negation, the non-affirmative negation of contact. It's a non-affirmative of obstructive contact. And there are two types of negations. There's an affirmative negation and a non-affirmative negation. An affirmative negation, for example, would be, today today I don't eat. What's the affirmation that I've made through this negation? That in another time I will eat, but today I'm not going to eat. But if I say just I don't eat, is there is there an affirmation that comes as a consequence? No. So when there are two types of negations. Negation that indirectly brings an affirmation, or a negation that doesn't, as a consequence, bring any other consequence, any other affirmative. So space is a non-affirmative negation of obstructive, it's the simple negation, it's the simple absence of obstruction. For example, in this singing glass, is there space for in this singing bowl, is there space for the glass? Yes, because there's nothing inside the singing bowl, or there's something inside the singing bowl. If there's nothing inside this singing bowl, if air was nothing, then what keeps an airplane up? It's not that it's empty. There's something inside, but what is inside is not an obstruction to the glass being there. Is there space for the vase? I'd say no. Why is there no space for the vase? Because there's something else that obstructs the possibility. There's this obstructive contact. It keeps it from being able to be there. So without getting into too many details, we get into a beautiful, beautiful concept. So wherever there's space, there's matter. And wherever there's matter, there's space. So space is not the lack of matter. Space is the non-obstruction for the existence of something in its interaction. Because wherever there's space, there's matter. Wherever there's matter, there's space. this, you know, there's space for oneself because there's no obstruction for that object to exist. Someone might ask, what does this have to do with anything? And we're going to meditation, and we'll get there. So we've understood that space is not empty. Space is the lack of obstruction. But even it comes to us spontaneously. For example, if we need to get into the car to take a trip, and there's someone in the car who doesn't want us in the car, and it's like there's no space for you. You know, there's some kind of there's some kind of obstruction that's keeping me from being able to be there. But if there's space, then there's a possibility for being there. There's no obstruction. In our thoughts and our mind, when we talk about inner space, it's this lack of obstruction to certain states of consciousness or feelings. What takes up our inner space? And here's an interesting concept. The more we're busy and the more distracted we are by gross level objects or objects related to our five senses, conceptual conceptual thoughts, then the less space we have. Our intuition, for example, which is marvelous, is very powerful. But if one has a very strong inner dialogue, is one able to follow one's or hear one's intuition when one is taken by all these worries from yesterday, worries for tomorrow, 1,000 different thoughts, all of what I'm seeing, what I'm smelling, what I'm hearing, then the deeper things cannot show themselves. They keep us from so to be able to follow my intuition and follow the inner balance, and I need to take away these distractions. And when we develop concentration, for example, it's said that the first necessary step to develop concentration is to take away distractions, create space to concentrate, because the state of concentration is not a state of tension, but a state of relaxation. Let me repeat that. Being concentrated is not something that generates tension and uses up energy. It's a state of relaxation. If I concentrate on this sound, I'm relaxing from the distractions, and I'm going to rest my mind on this object. I let myself follow the object. I'm not attached to other things. I relax from distractions. But to do this, we need to also somehow diminish the distractions. Our senses are also made up like this. The stronger the stronger a sense object is. For example, if they're very very loud noises, after a while we get used to it, right? And the softer sounds, they're there, but we're not aware of them. We don't hear them. And then as those loud noises diminish, what happens is that the it's almost like the softer sounds become louder and louder. It's almost as if our sensitivity, our inner sensitivity, became more attuned. A few days ago, someone told me a story of a monk who was in a retreat center in Scotland. And so there was a retreat center in Scotland, and people would go to do silent retreats. And this monk was on retreat, and one day, like a military plane flew by, and he was meditating, and he and he and he got really scared, and then he said, "Oh, I can't meditate here." It was really terrible. Um, and and he showed his friend that he was he was making a kind of bunker um, underground to meditate. And he said, "No one can disturb me here. You know, I can have absolute silence. You know, planes can go by. No matter what happens, it will be silent." And then after some time, um, his friend asked his monk friend who was constructing the bunker, said, "How's it going?" And he said, "It's a tragedy." And then he said, "I was so happy to go in. Nobody there to bother me." And then I went to meditate, and I started hearing incredibly noise, this loud noises, like my joints, the blood through my veins. And so these inner sounds were coming out, and it's extremely tiresome if you're not used to it. For example, they say that this world record for staying in these rooms that they've built, um, you know, these sealed rooms. World record is only 40 minutes for staying in these um, these rooms, and then it's said that when these people get out of these protected rooms, even just a simple hello is like a bomb going off. So 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 our so our perceptions, if I remember, there's something also called, if I'm not wrong, it's something like, it's called a raptic sense. I mean, we all have it. For example, blind people have it more developed, where many blind people, they say that they know when there's a wall in front of them. You know, if they're walking, and then they know that there's a wall, even without touching it, because there's something in their senses. That this sense, it's also the same sense that we all have it, that tells us when we know when someone's looking at us, even if we're not looking at them. There's a friend of Lama Gangchen who did research on this, and something he did, he is really beautiful. What he did was, he did research, based on very, very simple questions, but looked for scientific answers. And for example, how do you know if someone's looking at you? And then and and then he went, so for example, um, um, he did a lot of research, and he went to like private spies, and they said that if you are following someone, then the golden rule is to never look at them directly, because they can feel that they're being watched, and You know, it's even also, you see that if you're filming someone, I mean, it's very strange. I mean, there is this phenomenon that when somebody looks at us, it transmits something to us. We can feel it. But what I mean to say, our ability of perception, the more gross they are, the less we're able to feel or hear the softer sounds, and the more we're taken by coarse level thoughts and the you know what they told me about this and what's supposed to happen tomorrow and how is this going to be about next year, and if we're taken, without taking away the importance of anybody's problems, but the more I'm taken by all of these conceptual things, the less in touch I am with what's happening to me inside. But the best choices in life are those that are taken with a deeper aspect, deeper sense. Our our best discernment is more is a deeper one. Very often, those who are very prepared, when they need to make an important decision, at work or for whatever it is, when they need to make an important decision, they go somewhere in silence. They try to move away, to get away from everything, to look for an answer that comes from inside more spontaneously. Try to create space to bring out something deeper, something that reminds me of someone that we all know has nothing to do with the spiritual path, but Bill Gates, for example. He says that when he needs to take very important decisions in his life or work or anything else, he does something called the Think Week. It's a week where he needs to think. He has a kind of a house on the lake, and he takes food for a week. It's where he had spent his childhood. He takes a stack of books on that subject, and he stays alone for a week without his phone, without talking to anyone, and just there a week by himself to reflect on the subject. And then he takes his decision. But many thinkers, many important people, when they need to make a decision, they go on a walk. They would go look for a context that had nothing to do with that question at hand or a problem at hand, because they needed to create space. And this creating space is an inner ability, and meditation brings us there, this place where we can take away these obstructions, and so our deeper parts can have the space to come out. This is one quality of meditation. Just a couple of days ago, a few days ago, I had an experience that made me think. It's not the first time, but walking in the high mountains, for example, the experience that I had, that every time that I've gone walking here, I was above 2,000 meters. There's certain places where at a certain point, just the mind is still. I have few thoughts normally, but I was with people who have like endless inner dialogues, and when I was talking to them, even for them, those places, their minds were absolutely still. There were no other thoughts, and this is a marvelous experience because it's a place to rest one's mind, because we need to rest, we need to digest our thoughts. We need space from all these objects of perception. You know, we're bombarded constantly from so many objects of perceptions. We need to diminish these distractions, because these states that you can reach going in mountain, you know. So I don't know if you're going to go live in the mountains. And I thought that also that as I was coming down from the mountains, at a certain point, I got to a mountain hut. And in the mountain hut, there was music that was blaring. And I asked myself, it's so beautiful to be free from, you know, from distractions. Why do you need to fill it up with something else? And I think that at a certain point, it's fastidious, and one tries to fill up that void with something. So instead, that void is incredibly worthy. But this is something that we can do. We can induce into ourselves without having going to the mountains, because I don't know how many are able to go live alone in the mountains. But at least if you're beautiful, you can go, take a beautiful walk in the mountains. Here you leave the car at about 1,600 meters, and then you go walking. It was really beautiful. But it's possible, and it's something I really invite you to do, to get out. And this external space really helps you with internal space, but it's not enough. It's important in our daily life to sit down and meditate, breathe, be present in the present moment, train our minds, familiarize our mind with something positive and virtuous, with our identity, do a kind of positive brainwashing. If not, we're constantly, as I said before, bombarded with information, and we want only that. When we come here, we see all these paintings, all these images. One said to me, how can one concentrate with all these colors and all these images? And someone said, I guess it makes my head spin, gives me a headache. And Lama Gangchen once asked him, why did Rinpoche put so many images everywhere? I mean, and Rinpoche would just, put images in every corner. Only in the bathroom where they're not sacred images. Even in the hallways, everywhere. And he would say, every time we see something, that image leaves an imprint. So if we are constantly in contact with images that leave positive imprints, it's one extra it's one extra seed of hope. These little steps that we're taking in the right direction. It's important for us to receive certain types of information, connect with something that things that connect us with that dream that we talked about before. And the practice of self-healing is fundamental. When Lama Gangchen Rinpoche came to the West, he did something that I think is very, very special. He waited before teaching. Not that what he said before wasn't true, but for 10 years, he said to himself, I'm going to wait for 10 years so that I can learn about the people here. So he would see patients. He dedicated his life. He wasn't working. His first disciples in the West were his patients. He had this way of healing through blowing and touching, and very simple healing pills that are made in Tibet and Nepal, and it had marvelous results. And after about 10 years, 10 years dedicated to mostly this, so many beautiful stories come to mind here. When Lama Gangchen came to Greece, which was the first place he went in the West, he would receive people for healing, and he would get there. The person would have a problem. He would blow on the arm, also the kind of like spitting way, kind of. Today with the coronavirus, maybe not, but at that time, so a couple of times he would blow on someone, and then people would say, I know how to blow on myself too. But then people would come back after a week and say, oh, please blow on me again. I felt it's working. I feel so much better. I'm just going to tell you one story. It just came to my mind, and if I don't say it, it just stays stuck in my mind. Once, just an example of this, a girl in Brazil came. Rinpoche was on the ground on a cushion, and his Claudio Pulo was translating for him at the time. Today, many of you know him. He lives in Albagnano, a life of retreat, and he was translating from Tibetan into a little bit of like Portuguese, Italian, and the girl had a problem. She had a problem of health. She needed to have an operation on her vagina, but she couldn't because she had an inflammation, and she said, I had this problem, and he said, okay, stand up, raise your skirt, and he blew on her and spat on her a little bit. She was blushing like you can't imagine, and also my mother too, who was there, who was translating as well, was also really embarrassed. But after a few days, she came back with a huge bouquet of flowers. She was absolutely fine. I mean, it's difficult to explain, how these things work, but he would do something in these last years, for example. He would just pretend that he wasn't understanding, and he'd just leave things okay, kind of pretending that he wasn't understanding. And one reason was, I don't want to be here to heal you. I want to give you the tools so that you can heal yourself, because I won't be here forever, and I don't want to create a kind of dependency. After 10 years, showing that it was possible to heal, through, let's call it a so-called spiritual power. He said that he wanted to transmit to us that, the techniques that he uses. I want to give you the best of what I have. And it was here. It was actually here that in 1992, more or less, there was another master, Geshe Tendar. Geshe Tendar was, at his time, he left his body a few years later. He was one of the most important masters in the Vajrayana Tantra. He was one of the most important Vajrayana masters. Before, he wasn't very well known, but then at that time, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, at the Tantric College of Yuma, had a kind of conference, and he wrote out about 30 questions, very specific questions about Tantra, Vajrayana, Buddhism, and questions that didn't have very clear answers. And in this conference, these masters were invited, and they gave their answers, and it was and so Tendar Rinpoche, he was the Geshe Tendar. He was the one who answered perfectly, and was highly praised by His Holiness Dalai Lama. He himself actually was very direct person, and he knew Lama Gangchen very well, and he was just he was just sleep. He slept just here next to the reception. It was a little bit structurally differently. He was sleeping there, and one day Rinpoche was coming to the Gompa to teach, and he Geshe Tenda said to him, "Oh, kushu," which is a way to say Lama, but in a very direct, like equal to equal. And he took him from the lapel and he brought him close to him and he said, "I understood what you did," making reference to self-healing. He said, "You gave the root of your heart. Many won't understand, in that Tibetan context, many won't understand, but let me answer for you." And then there were some details of self-healing that he added. For example, when we do Omani Peme Hum, he said to start with the left hand and or towards the inside. This is small things that he actually had. He added. But the great masters who saw self-healing were all just overwhelmed, floored by it, because Rinpoche was able to take the essence of something extremely complicated and make it accessible to everyone. And and it just being accessible is not everything, but it works, but it works only if you do it, and otherwise it's just not. It doesn't work. So the practice of self-healing has many, many levels. And in self-healing, for example, Lama Gangchen, he gave it to all of his teachings. The first time he used self-healing was in 1989, when he gave teachings in Brazil that were then transcribed and became a book, became Self-Healing 1. And the meaning is that each one is responsible for himself in his own healing. We need to heal ourselves by way of our own effort. And here is a way to do it. Just in a few words. The practice of self-healing was recognized this way. Then this was the name that has just come spontaneously. Has many important aspects, but obviously now is not the time to start a commentary on self-healing. But it's an extremely worthy and important practice that Lama Gangchen transmitted. And one crucial point is represented here. There's these five Dhyani Buddhas here, and even the colors that you see on the ceiling. What do they represent? These Buddhas in both the masculine and feminine form, they're not gods to whom we have to ask something, but they represent our own qualities that are developed to their maximum maximum power. And there are five because our being is made up of five aggregates. They're aspects of our being. They're called the five wisdoms, five characteristics of our mind developed to their maximum potential. They represent our qualities, and also, they show also what mental defilements we need to eliminate. If we don't create familiarity, recognizing ourselves in what we want to become and creating this link of what we want to become, we'll just stay trapped. We stay trapped in what we live in our daily life. I don't know if this is clear. Because, do we have problems or not? Yes. Do we have worries? Yes. Personal, and then also the ones that are shared, common. Because if I tell you outside there are snakes, nobody would believe me because we're in Milan. But if we were in Albagnano, maybe they would believe. But if I say there's a danger outside, whether it's there or not, it becomes a common worry. We have you know, we have worries that are common. You know, we have means of communication that we share. So whether it's there or not, what happens is that we spend a lot of our life using up energy, using up our space with worry, thoughts, you know, managing our daily life. And I resolve this problem here, resolve that conflict there. And, you know, how can I get this object of pleasure? How can I avoid this object of aversion? You know, we're like a hamster on a wheel, or a little mouse in the maze. And what we need is to dream. We need to connect with this dream, see beyond, walk beyond. And to do this, there's conduct, but there's also meditation, which is fundamental. So, I invite you, and I take the commitment to do self-healing together, which is strange because when there's something that we do all the time, you know, when it's it, we do it all the time, and then when there's a commitment, it's like it's something physical. You it's something physical. You need to start from the beginning. You know, it's like if you would do something all the time and then you don't do it once, it's almost as if you've lost something. So I'd like to start up again and do self-healing together, because it's good to talk and share, but we also need to meditate, even if, you know, doing the practice, meditating is personal, but I think it's important to do together, to push a little bit, you know, to create a little bit create this habit of familiarization. Otherwise, you know, life goes by. There was an ad in Brazil when I was a child, and then I adapted it, and it was Portuguese. The tempo passa, tempo vola. So I adapt. So time goes by, time flies by, but samsara just keeps turning, in the sense that we just stay stuck in the same dynamics. So regardless of what happens in the economy, in the family. I mean, so many things that happen, and they've always happened, and they will keep happening. And with this, I don't mean to say that we shouldn't worry. We need to take care. This for sure. I mean, problems exist to be resolved, but you know, we have environmental problems, or not. You know, it's obvious. No? And so we need to act with awareness. There's, you know, there's a problem of energy, it seems. It seems to me, yes. So we should try to use less energy. Even last winter, it started a little bit, you know. I, you know, even last winter, I put the heat down at 18 degrees, but for the dog more than anything else. So it's possible. It's possible. So there's an environmental problem. I need to take care, not worry, but connect my life with other important aspects, who I want to be. And the practice of self-healing is a valid tool, deep, that we have, and that helps us connect with this better version of ourselves, and the dream that we want to realize. But connect with this path. This is fundamental. Otherwise, even if we get close to Buddhism or essential spiritual path, there's a danger that at a certain point we would use these spiritual tools for mundane reasons. So I do mantras, or I connect with the philosophy because I want to have fewer worries, or I don't want to feel sad, but which is fine. But the objective is something different. It's about developing our qualities to reach a level of space, of peace, you know, to then be able to help others do the same. So it's important to return, to familiarize ourselves with this better version of ourselves and meditate. Sit down on a cushion. Sit down. Allow ourselves to be present in the present moment. Sit there calmly. Feel the body. Feel the present moment. And direct our mind towards something positive. This is something that we have. And I just want to add one thing. Before I was talking to somebody, and I touched on this last week, and I wanted to bring it up again. It's possible to reach certain beautiful experiences through substances, and it's something appealing. It's something that you know that. Oh, I think, oh wow, through a substance I can reach this state. But any substance of, you know, in Tibetan medicine, you know, they say that any substance on the planet, if used in the right way, can be medicine. You know, it can even be even Coca-Cola. I mean, the way you use it, in what context, etc. But the problem is when one tries to induce a certain experience, inner experience, through external substances, and then to feel that experience again, one needs to go back to the substance. One is no longer under the effect. It's almost as if there's missing something, and a kind of addiction becomes created. Rinpoche would say that even if the substances created the spiritual realizations, then the world would be, if he actually said, if drugs brought spiritual realizations, then the world would be full of enlightened beings. So it's important so walking in the mountains to free one's mind is beautiful, but it's important to be able to reach that state without going into the mountains. And it takes effort. And just sit down little by little. We'll get there. Sit down. It takes a lot of effort. It's not something immediate. We're at the beginning. I mean, remember that that Buddhism in the West is just a baby. We're just at the very beginning. We're learning how to walk. So little by little, we need to just do one little bit at a time. I know one person in particular who lived here in Milan, a very normal life. Normal person who and said that the first time that she tried to meditate, the inner sensation was like the fingernails on a blackboard, just staying, without, staying seated without doing anything was extremely difficult. And then little by little, person was able to reach states of, was able to familiarize herself, reach different states of peace. And this space, the space that we need to create to be able to meditate is a temporal space. So we need to put it in the agenda, because if I just, it, so we need to actually create a time, and we need to create a physical space, and um, and also a physical space to be able to do it. So today I said more than I wanted, and last week, so next week, actually, we will start the practice of self-healing again, and this is something that I think is very important. So from next Wednesday, because it can seem very strange what I'm about to say. It seems strange what I'm about to say, but I don't like to talk. I like being to stay in silence, and I saw that I'd have no patience for teaching. But what we do when we're here together is, it's kind of like group analytical meditation. Where you take a subject, you reflect on that subject to create familiarity with that concept. And so, you know, what we talk about, the things that you already know. There's nothing new, but we do kind of a process of analysis together, which is wonderful. But it's not enough. And say when I say I don't like to talk, it doesn't mean that I don't like I don't like what I'm doing. I love it, but it's very good also to sit silently, meditate, to breathe. Meditating together is also really important. So this is what I wanted to share with you today, and I ask everyone to try to put into practice, as at least, to set the objective, to set an objective, to set a dream, to imagine a better version of yourself, and in every in every aspect of your life, try to imagine a better version. This is something. I mean, this is up to each one of us. No one can live the life for us. Yeah, but we can help each other. So it's time for our dedications.
Chetsun lame kutse rapten chin namkara chinle chokchur gepa dan losan tempe drume sasum drowe munsel takto ne gyurchi kewa kumtu yanda lama dan drame cheki pela longche chin sadan lamge yönten rabzo ne dorje change kopa nyur toba sho nimo dele tsindele nime kuyan delek shin ninsen takto delek pe kuncho sumke chingi lo kuncho sumke ngodrubo tsol kuncho sumke trashi shon.
At dawn or at dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to obtain all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with many signs of auspiciousness. Tashidele. Thank you, everyone.
lo sangya wa kungi yeshene chitu trime gaze simpeso raja giko gyatsu tanduk tinchen lame shala survadeb Omaha guru vajadara sumati gyana shasanada Samuda Shibada Sava Siddhi Hum Hum Omaha Guru Vajadara Sumati Gyana Shasanat Samuda Shibadra Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Omaha Guru Vajadara Sumati Gyana Shasanada Samuda Shibada Sava Siddhi Hum Hum Lojo Sampo Pagyuta Shipa Tuche Tempe Trinde Yangota Pagge Dulo Zampe Zepacham Palden Rame Shala Survadeb Omaha Guru Vajadara Sumati Muni Shasane Karma Tabardane Shri Badra Varsamanya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Omaha Guru Vajadara Sumati Muni Shasane Karma Tabardane Shri Badra Varsamanya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Omaha Guru Vajadara Sumati Muni Shasane Karma Tavardhana Shri Bhadra Varsamanya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Pakyukye Kudanda Gilu Pakyukye Sudanda Ginga Pakyukye Tudanda Giyi Toyeme Chiktu Jingi Lob Makyukye Kudanda Gilu Makyukye Sudanda Ginga Makyukye Tudanda Giyi Toyeme Chiktu Jingi Lob Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Shakya Munye Soam Guru Puja.